It started on a Tuesday, or maybe a Wednesday. The days blur when you don't sleep properly. I was on the couch, just watching the ceiling. That's what you do in a new place, right? You listen to the building settle, the pipes, the wind. But this was different. It was a footstep. A heavy, deliberate one. Right above the living room. I live on the top floor. My first thought was a bird. Pigeons get on the roof, they sound heavier than you think. Or a maintenance guy? Someone checking the HVAC? That made sense. The building is old, things need checking. I told myself that. I went to bed. But the next night, it happened again. Later this time, around 2 a.m. One step, then a pause, then another. It was walking, slowly, from the corner of the apartment near the bedroom wall towards the kitchen. I lay there, staring at the same ceiling, my ceiling, and I followed the sound with my eyes. Step, pause, step, pause. It stopped right above my bed. I didn't move. I just listened to my own heart, which was suddenly very loud. And then, after a minute of nothing, I heard it walk back. By the end of the week, it was a ritual. Every night, between 1:30 and 2, the walking would start. Always the same path, from the northeast corner, across the length of the apartment, and then back. I tried to rationalize it. The super, Mr. Hendricks, a small, quiet man in his 70s. I asked him if anyone had roof access. He just shook his head. Said the roof door's been sealed and welded shut since the 80s. Said I was hearing things. The old building settling. Old bones, he called it. I wanted to believe him, but I started paying closer attention. I'd sit in the dark, on the floor, with a glass against the ceiling. Stupid, I know, like a kid. And the sounds became textured. It wasn't just footsteps. It was the quality of the silence between them. A heavy, patient quiet, like something was listening back. One night around 3 a.m., I was in the kitchen getting water. No lights, just the glow from the street. And I heard it start. Right above me. Step, step, step. I stood perfectly still, holding my breath. Then the footsteps stopped, right where I was standing. And in that total silence, I heard something else. A faint, rhythmic creak. Not a step, something slower, like someone shifting their weight from one foot to the other. Just standing there, directly above my head. I spent that night on the couch with the lights on. The rational part of my brain started to fracture. I needed proof. I needed to see. So the next day I went up to the roof. The only access was a heavy steel door at the end of the hall on my floor, next to the elevator. I'd never paid it any attention. I grabbed the handle. It was ice cold. I pulled. It didn't budge. Padlocked. And not just any padlock, a thick, new, rust-proof one, gleaming under the hall light. Mr. Hendricks was right. It was sealed. I felt a wave of relief so strong I almost laughed. It was sealed. It was nothing. It was old bones. That night I slept like a dead man. No walking, no creaks, just blissful, empty silence. For 3 nights, there was nothing. I started to feel normal again, stupid for ever being scared. Then, on the 4th night, I woke up suddenly. The kind of waking up where you know something is wrong before you even open your eyes. The air in the room felt different, heavier. And I heard it. Not above me this time. It was in the hall, outside my apartment door. A single, soft footstep on the carpet, then another, moving slowly past my door, heading towards the emergency stairwell at the end of the hall. My blood didn't run cold. It just stopped. I felt a pressure in my ears, a disconnection from my own body. The steps paused, right outside my door. I stared at the thin slice of light underneath it, waiting for a shadow to break it. Nothing did. Then the footsteps continued, softer now, fading as they went down the hall. I heard the heavy fire door to the stairwell groan open, and then click shut. It wasn't on the roof. It was in my building, on my floor. I didn't sleep after that. I just sat in the dark, holding a heavy lamp, watching the door. When the sun came up, I forced myself to open it. The hall was empty. But on the carpet, right where the footsteps had paused, there was a faint, oval-shaped indentation, like someone had stood there for a long time. I went straight to the super's basement apartment. Mr. Hendricks listened, his face a polite mask of concern. I was probably more agitated than I realized. He told me, again, that the roof was sealed, that the stairwell door leads down to the lobby, which is locked at night, and up to the roof, which is also locked. He said no one could be up there. No one could be on my floor at that hour unless they lived there. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said something strange. He said, "The only person who ever used that roof access was a woman in 3B, about 15 years ago. She used to go up there to watch the sunrise. Nice lady." I asked what happened to her. He just shrugged. Moved out, I guess. Before my time. That night, I didn't sit in the dark. I stood by the door. I waited. At 1:47 a.m., I heard it, the soft footstep on the hall carpet, coming from the direction of the elevator. My hand was on the deadbolt. My heart was a fist in my throat. Step, step, step. Closer. It stopped, right outside my door. I could feel the presence, the weight of someone standing there. The air seemed to thicken, to press against the wood. I heard a tiny, almost imperceptible sound, a breath, inhaled on the other side. I wrenched the door open. The hall was empty, completely empty. The lights hummed. The carpet stretched away, pristine and bare. But at the end of the hall, the heavy fire door to the stairwell was slowly, silently swinging shut. I ran. I didn't think. I just ran. I hit that door at a sprint and burst onto the concrete landing. Up or down? I looked down. Nothing. Just the dim, spiraling staircase descending into the building's guts. I looked up, one flight, to the roof door, and I saw it. The padlock was gone. The heavy steel door was cracked open, just an inch, a sliver of blackness. I stood there, my breath tearing in and out of my lungs. I could see the new, shiny hasp. It wasn't cut. It wasn't broken. It was unlocked, as if someone had a key. I don't remember climbing the stairs. I just remember the cold air hitting my face, the vast, open sky above me, the city lights glittering far below. I was on the roof. I walked forward, my feet crunching on the gravel. The space was cluttered with old ductwork, satellite dishes, the low hum of machinery. And there, near the edge, standing with their back to me, was a figure, just a silhouette against the city glow. They were just standing there, looking out. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stood there, shaking, the wind whipping around us. Then the figure turned, slowly. It was a woman. Her face was pale, ordinary. She looked tired. She looked lost. She wasn't a ghost. She was real, solid. She was wearing jeans and an old coat. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not anger, not fear, just a deep, unsettling calm. "I used to live in your apartment," she said. Her voice was quiet, easily stolen by the wind. 3 years ago." I just stared at her. "I had a key. The super never asked for it back when I left." I finally found my voice. It was a croak. "What are you doing here?" She looked back out at the city. "I didn't move out," she said. "I just stopped going home. I found a way to stay. In the building, in the stairwells, in the boiler room. I know all the empty spaces." She turned back to me, a tiny, sad smile. "It's quiet at night, and I like to walk." She started walking towards me, towards the roof door. My body was frozen. She passed me, close enough that I could smell the dust and cold air on her clothes. At the door, she paused. She looked back at me. "The footsteps," she said. "I'm sorry. I didn't think anyone could hear them from below." I stood on that roof for a long time after she disappeared back into the stairwell. The door clicked shut behind her. I didn't hear the lock click. I haven't heard the footsteps since that night. Not once. But sometimes, late at night, I hear the soft groan of the heavy fire door at the end of the hall, the one to the stairwell, and I lie here, staring at my ceiling, wondering if she still walks, or if maybe, one night, I'll hear a step that doesn't come from above, or from the hall, but from the other room, from inside, because she had a key to my apartment too. She never said she gave it back.
I found a hidden door behind my bed. It wasn't on the house blueprint. I only noticed the door because the wall sounded hollow when I leaned back in bed. It was a Tuesday night. I'd lived in this house for 3 months. The headboard had shifted slightly to the left, and when I pushed it back into place, my knuckles brushed the wall. It didn't sound right. I got up and moved the bed frame away from the wall. Just a few inches, enough to see the seam. It ran floor to ceiling, straight. Too straight to be a crack in the drywall. The paint didn't quite match either, slightly warmer on one side, like someone had tried to blend it years ago and gotten close, but not close enough. I pressed my palm against it. The wall gave, just barely. A fraction of movement that shouldn't exist in something solid. I'd bought the house from an estate sale. The previous owner had died in a nursing home. Her daughter handled everything remotely. Emails, signatures, wire transfers. I never met her. The inspection report had been clean, thorough. I still had it saved on my laptop. I pulled it up that night, sitting on the edge of my bed with my phone flashlight aimed at the seam. The blueprint showed my bedroom as a perfect rectangle, exterior wall on one side, hallway on the other. No closets, no alcoves. No doors. I checked the measurements. The room was supposed to be 12 feet wide. I got my tape measure from the garage and stretched it wall to wall. 11 feet, 4 inches. 8 inches missing. The next morning I called a contractor. He came by that afternoon. Older guy, mustache, paint-stained jeans. I showed him the seam. He ran his hand along it, knocked twice, then pulled a utility knife from his belt and scratched at the paint. "That's a door," he said. "I know." "You want me to open it?" I told him no, not yet. I wanted to check something first. He shrugged, said to call him if I changed my mind, and left. I didn't tell him I could already see the hinges. They were painted over, but once I knew where to look, they were obvious. 3 of them. Industrial. the kind you'd use on something heavy. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept the bed where it was, pulled away from the wall. The seam looked wider in the dark. I knew that wasn't possible. I got up around 2 in the morning and stood in front of it. There was no handle, no lock, just a small indentation near the right edge, barely wide enough for fingertips. I didn't pull. The next day I went to the county records office. I requested every document related to my address: permits, blueprints, zoning maps, anything. The clerk brought me a thin folder. Most of it was recent. The house had been built in 1987, standard construction, nothing unusual. But there was one page that didn't match. A photocopy of a photocopy, faded and smudged. A handwritten note stapled to an older blueprint, one that predated the official filing by 2 years. The note said, "Basement access sealed per owner request, not for structural use." My house doesn't have a basement. I went home and stood in the backyard, trying to picture what might be underneath. The foundation was slab. I'd seen it during the inspection. But slabs can be poured over existing spaces. That night I put my ear against the door. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself there was nothing, just dead air and insulation. I heard something. Not a sound exactly, more like the absence of sound behaving wrong. You know how a room feels when someone's holding their breath? It was like that. Pressure. Presence. I stepped back. The next morning the bed had moved. Not much, maybe an inch closer to the wall. I knew I hadn't touched it. I sleep still. I don't thrash or roll. I moved it back. Measured the distance from the wall with a piece of tape on the floor. The following night it was closer again. I stopped sleeping in that room. I didn't tell anyone. What would I say? I started using the guest room down the hall, kept the bedroom door closed. But I could still feel it, the space behind the wall, the 8 inches that shouldn't exist. I went back to the records office, asked if there were any death certificates associated with the property. The clerk looked at me for a long moment, then searched the database. One result. A man, 1989, no cause of death listed, just a date and an address. My address. 2 years after the house was supposedly built. 3 years after that handwritten note about sealing the basement. I tried to find his name online. Nothing. No obituary, no social media ghost, no family trees or genealogy records. It was like he'd been erased. I haven't opened the door. I won't. But last week I noticed something. The paint along the seam is starting to crack. Not from age, from movement. Like the door is expanding, or something behind it is pressing outward. I put the bed back against the wall. I sleep there now. I tell myself it's fine. The weight of the frame keeps it shut. But some nights I wake up and the headboard isn't touching anymore, and I swear I can feel the draft coming through. Cold, stale air that smells like concrete and old earth. I don't look. I just close my eyes and wait for morning. The blueprint is still wrong. The space is still there. And sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I think I can hear something on the other side. Not knocking. Listening. A voice calls my name every night, but I live alone. I need to tell someone about this. Not because I think it'll help, but because I need to hear myself say it out loud. Maybe then it'll stop feeling so present. It started 3 weeks ago, Tuesday night. I remember because I'd just gotten home from a double shift, and I was too tired to even take my shoes off properly. I just collapsed onto the couch with my phone, scrolling through nothing, letting my brain turn off. That's when I heard it. My name. Just once. Clear. Quiet. Coming from somewhere near the kitchen. I sat up. Listened. Nothing. I live alone. Moved into this apartment 6 months ago after the breakup. 1 bedroom, 3rd floor, decent neighborhood. The kind of place where you hear your neighbors sometimes, but it's never been a problem. I figured that's what it was. Sound traveling weird through the walls. Someone calling for their kid, their partner, whatever. I went to bed. The next night, it happened again. Same time, around 1:30 in the morning. I was brushing my teeth, and I heard it through the bathroom door. My name. Just my name. This time I walked through the apartment, checked the windows, all closed, looked out into the hallway through the peephole. Empty. I stood there for probably 5 minutes, just watching that fisheye view of nothing. I told myself it was the pipes. Old building, pressure does weird things. I've heard whistles before, creaks, all that. This was just a coincidence. The brain finds patterns, makes words out of noise. I repeated that to myself until I believed it. By the end of the first week, it was happening every night, always between 1 and 2 a.m., always when I was alone in a room doing something quiet, getting water, reading, lying in bed awake because I couldn't sleep anymore. And it was always just my name, nothing else. No follow-up, no knocking, no footsteps. I started keeping my TV on at night, low volume, just for the noise. I thought maybe if there was sound in the apartment, I wouldn't notice it, wouldn't hear it. But I still did. I asked my neighbor about it, the guy across the hall, Marcus. Nice enough, works nights mostly. I caught him coming home one morning and asked, casually, if he'd heard anyone in the building calling out late at night. Maybe someone's kid having nightmares or something. He looked at me like I was talking nonsense. Said the walls were thick. Said he barely heard anything. I didn't push it. The second week, it changed. I was in the shower. 2 a.m. I know, weird time, but I wasn't sleeping anyway, and I thought hot water might help. I had my eyes closed, head under the stream, and I heard it. Closer this time. Not from the kitchen, not from the hallway, from inside the bathroom. I froze. Water running over my face. Couldn't see, couldn't move. I just stood there, waiting for something else. A door opening, a shadow on the curtain. Nothing came. When I finally turned the water off, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the knob. I stood there, dripping, staring at the curtain, listening. Silence. I got out, checked every corner, behind the door, inside the cabinet under the sink. I even looked in the mirror, half expecting to see something behind me. Just my own face. Pale, tired, scared. I stopped showering at night after that, but it didn't matter, because the voice followed me. Third week, last Thursday. I was sitting at my desk trying to work from home. Afternoon, broad daylight. I had music on, coffee going, everything normal, and I heard it, right next to my ear. I spun around so fast I knocked my mug over, coffee everywhere. But the room was empty. Door closed, window closed, just me. That's when I started wondering if I was losing it, if this was stress, isolation, some kind of auditory hallucination because I've been alone too much, working too hard, sleeping too little. I looked it up. Exploding head syndrome, hypnagogic hallucinations, grief responses. I wanted it to be that. I really did. But then it said something else. 2 nights ago, I was lying in bed, lights off, staring at the ceiling. It was late. Or early. Time doesn't feel real anymore. And the voice came again. My name. But this time, it kept going. I know you're awake. I didn't move, didn't breathe, because that's not something pipes say. That's not a pattern in noise. That's not my brain making something out of nothing. I waited. Seconds, minutes, I don't know. Then, quieter, almost gentle. You don't have to be afraid. I turned on every light in the apartment, checked every lock, looked under the bed, in the closets, behind the couch. I called the non-emergency police line and told them I thought someone was in my apartment. They sent an officer. He was polite, professional. He walked through, checked everything, found nothing. No signs of entry, no one hiding. He asked if I'd been under a lot of stress lately, suggested I call someone, a friend, family. I thanked him. He left. Last night, I didn't hear it outside of me. I heard it inside, not in my ears, in my head. Like a thought, but not mine. A voice that wasn't my own, saying my name over and over, soft and patient, like it was waiting for me to answer. And the worst part? I almost did. I'm recording this now because I don't know what else to do. It's 4 a.m. I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot outside my building. I left my phone inside, my keys, everything. Because when I was standing in my apartment an hour ago, staring at the door, I realized something. I wasn't afraid of what was outside anymore. I was afraid of what I might let in. Or what was already there. The voice isn't calling my name tonight. It's quiet. Because it doesn't need to call anymore. It knows I'm listening.